From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast, a weekly show for basketball gamers and hardcore hoopheads. Andrew with you once again, joined as always by my co-host Derek, aka Diva3. Derek, we remain as passionate as ever about basketball gaming and gaming in general. As such, there are things we're happy about right now, but other things, well, we're not so thrilled about them. We have some things to praise and get off our chest this week, so please, tip us off.
Yeah, on today's show, we are doing something a little different. 2 different segments we hope you will appreciate. We'll start off with D's Dislikes, where I go over recent happenings that grind my gears, followed by Andrew's Delights, where he discusses recent positives that have made him smile ear to ear. We will end the show with the community's dislikes and delights. So, Andrew, let's kick this off. D's Dislikes. My first dislike is the price of everything in gaming going up. Between the Steam machine pricing, to gaming service price hikes, to microtransactions and DLC taking center stage, to PC parts pricing, like RAM, being completely out of control and unaffordable. This is not the consumer's fault. This is the industry's fault, the decision makers. It comes down to a mixture of greed, influence, and control. And guess who loses? The average consumer. I feel bad for the parents who work multiple jobs and still can't afford gaming-related gifts, for the kids who miss out and are too young to understand what is happening, and for the adults who want to take part in these hobbies, which can also be an escape, but struggle to do so.
Just a couple of minutes into the show and you're going to get me bringing up my "you're broke" gripes, Derek? No, you're absolutely right. The price of gaming is going up and up. We've talked before about how games have been pretty inflation-proof in many ways, but hardware-wise, it's definitely getting more expensive. The games themselves, reaching into our wallets, trying to make more money, not always delivering value for money. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to feel positive about gaming these days because of that.
And again, my biggest problem with this is it's at no fault to the average consumer, to the average person. It's all based off of greed, influence, and control. My next dislike is College Football 27 was released on consoles and PC this July. Consumers immediately noticed that microtransactions were included in single-player offline modes. This led to an outcry that beat anything I have ever seen for the NBA 2K series, which has been criticized in a major way for its microtransactions and gambling mechanics. But because of the outcry related to the microtransactions in College Football 27, EA removed the microtransactions from these modes. Here is a tweet that summarized the situation, and this is from Pirate Nation. It states, EA has announced that it is removing all paid progression from College Football 27's Road to Glory and Online Dynasty modes after heavy backlash from players. The controversy started when fans discovered that the game included microtransactions in its main single-player modes. EA admitted, "We missed the mark." The company confirmed that an update would remove all paid progression options and said it is working on more changes based on community feedback. EA has not announced any refunds for unused points. So on one hand, I'm incredibly proud of those who spoke up. This proves that if enough people pull together, if enough people are loud enough, positive change can take place. However, on the other hand, the fact that the decision makers at EA attempted this, the fact that they thought they could ignore the negative feedback and possibly push through it, and the fact that this is a major red flag for future games, including them seemingly not counting it out for College Football 28, is a big concern for me and a big dislike.
Oh, absolutely. And shout out to everybody who did speak up. We've talked about this before with NBA 2K, Derek, how people really seem to be just accepting of the situation. Oh, it's business. Oh, this is just the way of things. This is just gaming in the current year. And look what 2K has done. And this seems to have pushed it even further. I don't play the college football series, but from my understanding, it really has been taken to the next level. Because in 2K, you have microtransactions in My Team, which can be single-player, obviously. You have it in My Career, which is single-player. It does have the online multiplayer component, obviously. But even if you are just playing single-player, you are being pushed to spend to get that early boost so that your player is actually viable. So this is nothing new. And even if you go back to MyGM in NBA 2K14, the first iteration of MyGM in NBA 2K14 for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, Derek, we saw how VC was implemented in a single-player mode, having to unlock basic roster management functionality in a single-player game. And people excused it at the time, saying, oh, you can just play a couple of games, it's only a few hundred VC, it'll unlock very quickly. And that just showed that too many people were willing to accept a situation that they really shouldn't have to put up with. But this really does seem to have taken it even further. They really pushed their luck with it. So, yeah, I'm really glad that people pushed back, that they made such a stink that EA had to go back on this. But I don't trust that they won't try this again.
Not just them, other companies, right?
Yeah.
Let's see what we can get away with, right? And I think that's what this was. It's let's see if we can get away with
Test
this.
the waters, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Also, how cool would it be if the outcry was this big for NBA 2K's microtransactions, for those gambling mechanics, for the intentional grind? I think that, there could possibly be some positive change there if people actually fought back and said, you know what, I'm not going to buy these microtransactions. You know what, I'm not going to buy virtual currency. You know what, I'm not going to open all these packs. You know what, I'm going to take to social media and I'm going to get a bunch of people behind me. I would love to see big change in that way for the NBA 2K series.
And you look what happened with the WWE 2K series. People pushing back on the Battle Pass system in WWE 2K26. Very unfair to consumers. You had to work to unlock the wrestlers that you got through pre-order bonuses. So they were really greedy with that approach. The community pushed back. They actually backed off. Again, this is Take-Two. This is 2K. So it can be done. It's just baffling sometimes, Derek, how accepting the NBA 2K community user base is about how greedy they've been over the past 10 years plus. Justifying everything. It's business. You broke. Whatever. I feel like if it cost 1,000 VC to get past the title screen, people would say, well, you can just manage your budget. You should really be budgeting your VC. And it's only a couple of dollars if you haven't got that VC in your wallet. How far are people willing to go to defend these practices?
I mean, if you're an influencer, content creator, somebody that's invited to community day, somebody who wants to grow their channel, et cetera, maybe a reviewer, I think they'll go pretty far to defend these. And the problem is that heavily controls the influence, right? So my next dislike is actually kind of related to this. Ronnie 2K put out a tweet that stated, "Booing me is a tradition at this point. Last night, they didn't even need a reason, just a poster. The documentary shows the part nobody boos for. The most hated man in gaming, tonight at the Palms in Vegas." And he shared a video. It looks like he was getting booed by an NBA Summer League crowd, and they were promoting the most hated man in gaming feature on the Jumbotron. The problem here is, Andrew, is the reason why people don't like Ronnie 2K is because he's associated with the company that does a lot of the things that we just mentioned. And, he wears the boos and the negative comments like a badge when it has everything to do with the decline in the series, predatory practices, and his lies. I think that it's absolutely ridiculous. I remember there was an outcry at one point, not as big as it was for College Football 27, but it was pretty big. There was an outcry about microtransactions in one of the NBA 2Ks, and Ronnie 2K went on social media and stated, "Nobody is forcing you to buy these microtransactions." And that was his response to all of it. Read the room, right? These are obviously concerning practices. There's an obvious intentional grind in the game. There's obvious gambling mechanics in the game. And the reason why he gets booed is because he's associated with all of that and kind of the decline of the NBA 2K series. Because honestly, it really hasn't been the same since pre-NBA 2K18.
Exactly. We've talked about it so many times. It's optional is not an excuse. It technically is, but functionally, if you don't pay for those early upgrades in my career, if you're not buying packs to quickly upgrade your team in my team, then you are going to have a bad time, especially in the online arena. The grind has just become ridiculous. You don't have to pay, but it's certainly putting pressure on you to do so. And on top of all of that, Ronnie 2K has been extremely antagonistic towards the community. Obviously, there's been the disrespect towards NBA Live, and I know NBA Live brought some of that on themselves. They certainly made themselves an easy target for 2K to take a victory lap and say, look how we're blowing out NBA Live, if you will, in this competition. But there was a lot of unprofessional behavior on Ronnie's part back in 2009 when NBA Live 10 and NBA 2K10 were going head-to-head, a lot of unprofessional comments on his part, ended up deleting a forum post where he was calling out the NBA Live 10 patch. Just ridiculous. Since then, very antagonistic towards gamers. There was the person who brought up the lack of hairstyles in NBA 2K17, saying, hey, we want some more customization options. He says, we're more than a Barbie dress-up game. Very snarky response to that. And of course, the next day, a blog drops where they talk about all the shoes that you can outfit your player with. More than a Barbie dress-up game, here are some shoes that you can buy for your player. There's been some very inappropriate comments towards Agent 00 when he was looking to emigrate to the US, commenting on that situation very disrespectfully, very inappropriate, very unprofessional once again. Going back and forth with Flight on social media. When people were calling out the NBA 2K20 neighborhood looked the same as NBA 2K19, he says, oh, people who think that, they don't know what they're talking about. That's absolutely not the neighborhood. You're dumb. And then NBA 2K20 comes out, and what do you know? It's the same map as NBA 2K19. Not a big deal for me. I thought it was a pretty good neighborhood map as far as having an open world in a mode that really shouldn't have it. But he lied about that and was trying to say people who accurately noticed that was the case from the previews were wrong. No apology, no acknowledgement of that. And there's been so many incidents like that. Yeah, why wear this, the most hated man in gaming, as a badge of honor? Why is he a celebrity? It's absolutely ridiculous. As we've said before, he does his job as far as being a lightning rod for criticism, for hate of the series, but he's really not enhanced the series in any way. He should not be a celebrity, Derek. People should not be making movies about running 2K. This is absurd.
I knew you would have a lot to say about Ronnie. I want to say, though, that all of this hate, this stupid documentary, the whole, the most hated man in gaming, this wouldn't even exist if the series hadn't taken a turn for the worst, right? Because all of this negativity is related to that decline. It's related to all the microtransactions, the gambling mechanics, the way the game is designed, and that people are not overall happy with it. So this wouldn't even be a topic of conversation if the series itself hadn't declined. My next dislike is nobody playing basketball on the outdoor courts in the evenings or on the weekends in my area. Growing up, the outdoor courts were always packed. You would have people sitting on the grass or on the benches waiting to get in. This was pretty much an every evening and weekend occurrence. What happened? I am not the only person who has mentioned this trend. I have seen it pointed out by others who live in the U.S. in different states. Where is the love for the game? Where is the love for pickup? Where is the love for meeting people through the sport this way? When I was growing up, playing hoops on the blacktop was not only a fun escape, but it was a way to get better, to get tougher, and to make friends. Again, what happened?
Yeah, that is disappointing to see. And that kind of pickup culture hasn't really been huge in Australia, as popular as basketball is. I do see some kids playing on my local court. I've been meaning to go there myself, as I've said before, and shoot around a little bit. Must admit that I haven't taken the opportunity to do so yet. The weather hasn't been great the last couple of weeks, so I haven't really had the opportunity. But yeah, I definitely need to get out there and shoot around like I've been wanting to. And yeah, that is disappointing that people aren't getting out there and playing basketball as they used to.
And I'm curious, as it relates to this dislike, if any other people in the NLSC community are experiencing this lack of places to play, not enough people playing, etc., whether you're driving by or you're trying to get a pickup game in yourself. So let me know, because yeah, it's a concerning trend in my area, at least over the last 6 or 7 years. My last dislike, Andrew, is the longest one, so I wanted to save it for last. NBA The Run by Play-by-Play Studios was released on June 9th on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation consoles. This game was heavily marketed, and I took part in the beta playtests. However, something seemed off. Despite me seeing the positives in the gameplay and even enjoying the game at times, the entire approach to the game from the developers and marketing team, in turn the cult-like following from influencers that followed, seemed off. Due to everything feeling just not right, I turned down the opportunity to get one of the lead developers on the show. He had stated in the Discord group that he would love to come on the show. But again, something just didn't feel right. So I went with my gut. We predicted on the show that consumer reviews about the game would be mixed, that it would die fast due to being online PvP only with a lack of depth, even stating that it could take around 30 days for the gamer base to die out. All of this came true, which is just one of my dislikes related to the NBA The Run situation. The other is the concerning positive reviews on Steam, many which look suspicious in nature. Not only do many look combative of the negative reviews, and others that look scripted, but there appears to also be one from an employee of Play-by-Play Studios. The review goes, "Game feels really good, smooth, and looks stunning. Online games aren't usually my cup of tea, but the competition has been strong for me. That's a good thing. It's come a long way since the beta. Can't wait until they continue to update it. Would love Legends in this. My opinion is, I believe this game may be at mixed or mostly negative without the questionable positive reviews thrown in. This concerns me. Furthermore, about the prediction that the player base would die out fast, the game shows as often having under 100 players online via SteamDB. This shows on weekends, evenings, etc. This, when most kids, teens, and young adults are out of school for the summer. I have shared many screenshots where there were only 30 players, 50, 61 players online. The 24-hour peak is usually between 200 and 250 players. The low player count has also been mentioned in the NBA The Run Discord, where one user posted the players online being in the 30s, followed by something along the lines of, "This might be why I'm constantly playing bots." I've also run into this one playing recently, where I'll be playing against teams with all bots for a game or two during the tournament structure. If you consistently have under 100 players online in an online PvP-only sports game, in my opinion, your game is dying. The game peaked at launch with around 2,800 players and hasn't returned since. This, while the player base for this game should either be growing or hovering around healthy numbers. This is a major dislike, because I hate to say, we told you so, but hey, we told you so. They also made an announcement that new players would be coming, and offline campaign is planned for spring 2027. This goes back to what I said when I reviewed the game, that this game was at the very least 1 year out from being ready. This announcement proves my point, and that's if the game has enough players and legs to get them to that point. I strongly dislike the fact that this game's shortcomings and the reaction that we predicted it would get due to lack of depth was easy to see coming by me and those who didn't suck up to the devs and the idea. But the development team for NBA The Run went this route anyway. The content creators, reviewers, and influencers who were not honest about this game, whether it's because they were sponsored by Play-by-Play Studios to make a video, given a free copy of the game, or both, should be ashamed for using their influence the wrong way, for not scoring this game appropriately, for not highlighting its obvious shortcomings, for talking it up for all the wrong reasons. It's important to note that I'm not saying Play-by-Play Studios gave people perks, free copies, or told people to be nice when talking about the game. What I am saying is there is something incredibly strange about the way this game was talked about by major outlets and small and big content creators alike. Something just isn't right with all of it. Lastly, there has been an effort from the NBA The Run Twitter handle to continue to bring up the fact that they have an 18-person team. It's worth noting that you looked into the credits for NBA Street Volume 2, and the number of people that were part of actually developing the game hovered around 30, which is still a small development team. The bottom line is the majority of gamers don't care about the size of your development team. They care about getting a game that's worth what they paid for it. We stated that the $29.99 and $39.99 prices in the US were too high based on what people were getting. But again, this is another poor decision NBA The Run went with. So that ends this dislike, Andrew. So far, at this point, this is a major I told you so. I dislike how they marketed the game, which to me didn't shine enough light on the fact that this game had no offline single-player mode or couch play. I dislike the odd positive reviews on Steam and elsewhere by influencers, reviewers, and content creators. I dislike the fact that console gamers cannot get a refund on this game once they find out that the game has no offline single-player or multiplayer via couch play. I dislike the fact that because this was released when it was, with the lack of depth, that by spring of 2027, when there is an update that may include some offline options, that the ship will have already sailed. First impressions are everything. My opinion is most people that were looking at the game will not take a second look.
And to your point, we don't relish saying I told you so. We didn't want the game to be a flop. We didn't want to be negative about the game. We love to see new games in the space. We want to see more NBA licensed games in the space. But everything that's gone down with NBA The Run's launch and the previews and what seems like astroturfing with reviews and that cult-like support, as you put it. A very appropriate way to put it. The way criticism and concerns, valid criticisms and concerns, were being shut down the way they were. Yeah, very disappointing, because we would have liked to see this game be more than it is. And obviously, the game is not everything that it should be. I will say that it's been fun to connect with you. We've had some fun sessions with it. We should be able to play it for longer, though. Really, you can't play it for more than an hour, I feel, because it gets too repetitive. Is it nice to jump on once a week and play for half an hour to an hour? Sure, that's been fun, connecting with you, connecting with a friend to play it. But like you said, we're encountering more bots. Either our random teammate or the players we've been facing have been bots. This soon after launch of an online PvP title. Yeah, it's not promising. I share your concerns about the future. I'm not confident that this game is going to last until those updates. They really need to be pushing through more much sooner. So yeah, our concerns have been validated. We have been proven correct. And yeah, as far as the content creators, that has been disappointing to see. But yeah, even though I've had those fun sessions with you, I have to agree 100%. Not confident for the future of this game. And we hate to say we told you so, but we told you so.
An online PvP sports game with no live chat, voice or text chat, and no rankings, no leaderboards, etc., all missing from launch. None of it there. That is a major red flag. Like I stated, I dislike how this was handled, the release of this game. I dislike how the marketing was handled overall. I'm disappointed in the influencers and content creators out there. I think that this game was rushed out. That's my opinion. I think that it was at least a year out from being ready, and I think the reviews are reflecting that. It's basic. What's happening right now is basically exactly what I predicted, right, and what we predicted on past shows. And I hate this. I absolutely hate this, because we want games like this, the idea of this, in the space. And when I say like this, the idea of this, I mean fun arcade action, right? Like something different than a 5-on-5 sim, something like we used to have in the NBA Jam and NBA Street Series and whatnot. But because this game was released online PvP, because it has no couch play, no offline play, because people can't make memories with this game with others in their own home, etc., they completely missed the mark. And the response is what I expected. In fact, on the first impressions review that Soft Drink put out on YouTube, if you go look into the YouTube comments, it's people stating, no offline play, I'm out, right? The majority of the comments on that first impressions review, at least the most popular, are related to the game missing the mark on that piece. Not having offline couch play and multiplayer, not having an offline single player mode, etc. That was the obvious pulse, right? I was talking about it during the beta. I was talking about it even before the beta when they announced the game and the features and everything. And, we were reading comments from what people were saying on Twitter and other social media platforms. It was very, very obvious that this wasn't going to work. And in my opinion, looking at the online numbers, looking at how many people are online playing at any given time, this game is already dying.
And it has been unfortunate to see the way some content creators have promoted the game. And I understand being optimistic. I understand wanting this game to be successful, wanting it to be the next NBA Street. But so much of that content was premature and disingenuous, even. They weren't bringing up the concerns that we were pointing out. And you mentioned that we decided against having the interview. And that was a great call on your part, the right call. But it's unfortunate because that's not the thing we'd normally turn down, Derek. Normally we want to have interesting guests when we have the opportunity to bring them on the NLC podcast, to talk to developers and personalities. So that's not usually the kind of thing that we turn down. We want to talk to these people on the show, get insights into the game, have a genuine conversation, get that information out to our fellow gamers. The fact that we felt that that wasn't going to be possible, that we might be participating in some astroturfing or promoting the game in a way that it shouldn't be promoted, yeah, that's a bummer.
I'm not saying that there wasn't passion put behind this game.
Of course.
Behind the development and whatnot. In fact, I have over 20 hours into this game. I'm not your average gamer, mind you, but I have put time into this game. Obviously, the repetitive gameplay loop makes the game get old pretty fast. But from a gameplay standpoint, they brought a lot of staples from the Street series into this game, and many of those staples do function well. I think that overall the game can be fun. I would really love a game like this with the appropriate depth in this space. And I'm not stating that Michael Young and Scott Probst and the people that worked on the game didn't make this game with anything but love. But at the end of the day, there were poor decisions made, in my opinion, as it relates to the development of this game, what they focused on, when they released it, how they released it, what took place with influencers, etc. And that's unfortunate to me. But I just didn't get the right vibe. Something felt off, which is why I didn't proceed forward and message this developer separately and state, yeah, we would love to have you on the show. It's worth noting that another dislike that I have is PlayStation's decision to stop producing physical discs for PlayStation games in January 2028. I'm not going to go into my disappointments related to that announcement. If you want to hear them, though, you can listen to last week's NLSC podcast where we covered that story in detail. So I do have other dislikes, but that's probably enough for this episode. If you do like this feature, let us know, and I can bring it back on another show in the near future.
Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, nba-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at nba-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community. So that brings us to the next segment, where we're going to be talking about things that we like, some positives that are going on at the moment. And I thought I'd leave this off, Derek, with I'm really enjoying what I'm playing these days when it comes to basketball gaming. As you know, and as I'm sure many of our long-time listeners know, for a long time there, I was in a rut, grinding away in my career year after year, having some fun, sure, but I was definitely in a rut, definitely not enjoying basketball gaming as much as I could have and should have been. These days, just really enjoying all the things I'm playing, whether it's playing my career in NBA 2K14, which isn't a grind, which is fun, playing a franchise, the association with you in NBA 2K9, or some of my solo franchises. Yeah, just having a blast at the moment. Our Sunday sessions have been a lot of fun, connecting with you, Kid Cash, and Wizcard Rush. King Kong Fresh joins us as well for some sessions. Getting to run that 5-player co-op game of NBA Live 95 for Super Nintendo. I wanted to do that for a while. That worked out great once we got that set up. NBA Live 96 for Super Nintendo as well. Also a very fun session there. 3 and 4 player games of NBA Live 10. Our NBA 2K9 association, as I said, some really satisfying wins. We picked it up the other day, played the Knicks. They got out to a big lead early on. And we didn't quit, Derek. We don't quit the game and start over if we get off to the bad start. We lock in, we try to make the comeback, and we've had some very satisfying comeback victories so far in the NBA 2K9 association, that Knicks game being the most recent one. You know, it's even more exciting when we prevail like that because we blew them out. We have off-the-charts chemistry, I think, when we get it going. When we lock in those games, we just have some great victories. Even in a couple of the heartbreaking losses, we've still had fun moments, still creating highlights, still creating memories on the virtual hardwood. So yeah, I'm just enjoying what I'm playing at the moment, playing whatever I feel like, leaving that rut well behind me.
Right, the game with no strings attached, right? To just play whatever you want with whoever you want, whenever you want. And I feel like the rut that you were in is the rut a lot of gamers are in who don't explore other options. Getting online, feeling like you have to grind in order to make your player better so you can actually enjoy online play. Going into my team and saying, you know what, I got to open more packs. And you open packs and you don't get the player you want. And then you're like, yeah, I got to open more packs. And there's a lot of other gamers out there that, they put money into the game in order to try to get what they want, etc. And that sounds miserable to me, right? That grind sounds miserable to me. forcing you to put money into the game to progress because you don't have enough time to do it otherwise. That sounds terrible to me. Constantly opening packs, putting money into the game and not getting the player that you want. That sounds terrible to me. Paying for seasons and then opening packs and still not getting the player you want that you waited months for it to be available, etc. Just all of that sounds terrible. So yeah, gaming without the strings attached. I'm glad that you shifted. I'll take credit for being a small part of that, for getting you to shift.
Part, actually.
I love gaming that way, and that's the way I've been gaming my whole life.
When you get into that routine that's comfortable and it works, but it's not as fun as it should be, that grind. I knew how to grind effectively, efficiently, but not having fun doing so. And with my team, the agendas, they're helpful. I like the idea in theory, but then you're just working for XP. You're just going through the motions. You're just going through the checklist to get that XP, to level up, to get the rewards. Like you say, a lot of strings attached. Just being able to play whatever, jump from game to game, as I like to do. Doing things like minimalist modding, putting together some makeshift classic teams, finding out what I can do in old games that I revisit, dipping into the collection to check out games that I haven't spent a lot of time with, finding they've got some legends or some other content that's fun to play with, and putting that to good use. ESPN NBA Tonight 2002. Not a great game, Derek. We need to connect on that one. We need to talk about it on the show sometime in depth, because it is a very interesting game, even though it is a rather flawed game. But I had a blast putting together a makeshift 1998 NBA Finals matchup, because Michael Jordan is in the game, courtesy of his Wizards comeback. So being able to play that game, makeshift 98 Bulls versus Jazz, yeah, stuff like that has been so fun, so rewarding, and you can't do that when you're on the grind.
Exactly. And I think that retro gaming is a very healthy hobby that I hope more people consider, young and old, because again, those games are available. You can get them in physical form. Oftentimes you can get them at fair prices, and there's none of those strings attached. And look at people in our community right now, like Bucky T and Kid Cash and MP3 and WizCard Rush, et cetera, King Kong Fresh. All of these people are playing that way and having a blast doing it, whether it be playing the native version of the game on the console, whether it be playing games through emulators, whether it be playing PC releases, etc. People are just having a really, really good time. So anybody that's listening to this show that's thinking about getting into retro gaming, I just recommend doing it. Get into it, because there's a lot of fun that can be had.
Absolutely. We're big advocates for that here on the NLSC podcast. Also want to mention NBA Bounce, Derek. We connected and played that during one of our Sunday sessions recently. And I played a little bit by myself as well. And yes, it's very simple, but I think it's a great game for a younger audience. And I know it's a low bar, but it's so much better than shovelware like Kid Sports Basketball. This is a title worth giving to young gamers who like basketball or who might want to get into basketball. The minimalist modding capabilities are entertaining. You did a great job with the retro teams that we played with. Kind of makes me wish that that's what they'd done. Kid versions of NBA players, current NBA players, and legends in the style of the Backyard Sports series. It launched at too high a price, but at the current price point, it's a bit better value for money. There's a season mode. There is that editing that allows you to do some minimalist modding, put together some makeshift classic teams like you did. Yeah, now that the price has come down, that's a game I could possibly recommend, Derek.
If you have kids, I highly recommend NBA Bounce. And I can't believe I'm saying that, because you and I originally were sour on this game. Why? Because it was priced at $50 on Steam, which was way too high for what the game offered. However, the game is now $19.99 US. It was recently on sale for around $14. That is a good price, and you can have a lot of fun with your kids on this game. There's no stat tracking, whatever. Kids may not care too much about that, but it has a season mode. It has couch co-op, couch multiplayer. You can create players. The players are kids. It's a fun game. You can unlock mascots, so there's unlockables. It's not pay to win, all of that stuff. I like this game overall, and if I was a parent, I would absolutely be picking it up. I already own it, but if I was a parent, I would pick it up in order to play with my kids. I think the gameplay is fast and fun. It's very simple and easy to pick up and play.
Offline gameplay, couch co-op. and couch head-to-head. Absolutely. And I mentioned minimalist modding, because again, that is something that I love to do these days with my basketball gaming. Put together those makeshift classic teams, or Legends teams, or whatever. How fun was it to create the 96 Bulls and 87 Lakers in NBA Bounce?
I enjoyed it. And they look pretty good out there.
Yeah.
Right? Rodman with his colored hair. I put all the accessories, right, on the players. I also created the 95-96 Supersonics. There was the 85-86 Celtics with Bird, Parrish, and McHale. They looked the part. Pippen and Jordan looked good on those Bulls teams, etc. You know, we had Worthy with his goggles, bald Kareem with his goggles, Magic looking the part. I even had a permanent smile on his face. You can make their mouth look any way that you want, and there was a smile option, so it's like I'm going to just make Magic smiling all the time. But yeah, it was fun to put together, and I think that the customization in that game is actually very underrated, and you can do a lot with it.
Might have to spend some more time with that, absolutely. And of course, I am leaning towards retro gaming these days. Again, we're big advocates for it here at the NLSC, on the NLSC Podcast. I love discovering a new retro kick, as you know, Derek, or developing a new appreciation for a game that maybe I overlooked, maybe just made a poor first impression. And recently, that's been NBA 2K6 for the PlayStation 2. I actually picked this up originally some 20 years ago and didn't like it. It didn't help that it came out in March 2006. For whatever reason, at the time, NBA 2K was coming out in PAL regions months after the North American launch. So as much as anything else, I think that contributed to me not getting into the 2K series until much later, and possibly other people in Australia and other PAL regions as well, because NBA Live was the brand, our brand of choice, the one that we were familiar with. And of course, I was hooked on NBA Live 06 PC, but I did want to give NBA 2K6 a try. It didn't capture my imagination back then. It was too different. I still say that freestyle is better than isomotion. I'll always maintain that, but I have gotten used to those controls. I do like the feel of that game these days. And having really gotten into the Xbox 360 version, I thought, well, it's time to give the PS2 version another try, because they are very similar, obviously, and that was to the benefit of the 360 version. As I said in my Way Back Wednesday retrospective, now I enjoy 2K6 for PS2 just as much as 360. The only thing missing is Charles Barkley. Unfortunately, that does mean that the 360 version has a very interesting trivia note with him making that rare appearance. But apart from that, the gameplay is the same, the controls are the same, you've got the same amount of modes. Again, this meant the 7th generation launch was much stronger for 2K. They made the right call there. But yeah, it's one of those games that I can go back and appreciate now with more of an open mind, with that willingness to try different styles, different approaches to controls, etc. Yeah, that's something I love about my retro kicks, Derek.
So we recently revisited NBA 2K11 for PS2, and that gameplay is very similar to NBA 2K6 for PS2. In fact, the bones are basically the same. And we had a really fun time on that co-op session. Remember, we used the Thunder with Westbrook, Durant, Ibaka, and Harden. And we left that session saying, hey, this game is better than we remembered. This is a playable game. So it doesn't surprise me that you revisited NBA 2K6 for PS2 and enjoyed it, because overall those bones are the same. And I think that they were doing a lot of good things with the gameplay at the time, aside the ISO motion dribbling. I'm not a fan of that, really. But as far as, shooting goes and attacking the rim and what they were doing graphically and from a presentation perspective, I'm not surprised that you had some fun with that game.
You talk about the visuals, pushing the PS2, a 6th generation console, to its absolute limit. Very impressive faces, models, and environments in NBA 2K6. Yeah, very strong release. It does make me wish that I had been able to get into 2K earlier than I did, especially with NBA Live 07 being a disappointment across both generations. If I'd been able to play 2K7 for Xbox 360, I probably would have enjoyed it that year. With us being the NBA Live Series Center at the time, so focused on the NBA Live Series, my brand loyalty, my loyalty to the PC platform, wanting to update the PC version, the rosters for the PC version for the season, might have been difficult, but the great thing is, now I can go back and enjoy those games, and I absolutely do. And in a similar vein, it also delights me whenever I discover that a game I love and enjoyed back in the day holds up just as well, or better, than I remember it. And NBA Live 95 comes to mind here. Both versions that I played growing up, the PC version and the Super Nintendo version. And of course the Genesis version is pretty much the same as well. And yes, NBA Live 95 has been surpassed in so many ways. That's obvious. Technology has come a long way. Graphically, it's been surpassed. Depth-wise, even on the virtual hardwood, it has been surpassed. No question. But when you try to play that game realistically, Derek, the results are really pleasing. It makes you realize there's some great strategy in those old games. Very solid X's and O's. More so than we thought at the time. When we played, switching to a motion offense in the coaching options, you could see the difference in player movement. NBA Live 06 PC is the same. I'm trying to bring that back into my rotation as well moving forward, and mod that game as well. I just love it when you go back to these games, and despite what everybody says about rose-coloured nostalgia goggles and everything else, these games, you can appreciate, yes, they have aged in some ways, but in other ways, they hold up superbly, they're so fun to play, and you also discover, hey, they're a bit better than I remember, because now I'm playing them a bit more sim. I'm actually playing them a bit more realistically. I'm taking advantage of moves that I never took advantage of before. Strategies that I ignored, overlooked. Yeah, that's another very satisfying part of retro gaming, Derek. Going back, finding out these games hold up even better than you thought, and having even more fun with them, creating more memories with them.
Yeah, and NBA Live 06 works great on PC. Full 60 FPS, no issues at all, being installed natively. So that's also a great PC port for the NBA Live series. Yeah, I really enjoy that game. I think that Freestyle Superstars is a little bit overpowering at times. And not only that, it's addicting, right? It's a little bit too addicting, and I find myself trying to use it too often. And that's where I, at times, prefer NBA Live 2005. Because I'm not constantly looking to use Freestyle Superstars. It doesn't have that overpowering feature. However, I do like how it did add signature style and new animations, etc. You can throw fancy passes with Magic Johnson, etc. But yeah, you've played with me enough on these games where you see that I do like to use strategy. Sometimes I will use quick plays. I use quick plays actually more when I'm solo than when I'm playing with you. But yeah, you can use a lot of strategy in these older games, run different sets, run people off screens, get people in motion and whatnot, and it actually will pay off. And I think that NBA Live 06 overall, from a gameplay perspective, is really solid. So if you add that part in, it's even better.
And I do love NBA Live 2005 as well. A fantastic 3-year run for Live, 2004, 2005, 06. 2003 I do appreciate more. Not quite my tempo, to make a Whiplash reference here, but it did bring in freestyle control. It is fun to play if you're not taking it too seriously. I do like that they pulled it back, went more sim with 2004, 2005, and 06. And of course with 06, you can disable Freestyle Superstars, and then it plays kind of like an enhanced version of 2005. You have the fixed fast breaks, you have some better player movement, better player AI. So yeah, 06, the PC version anyway, and of course that's the same on PS2 and Xbox as well. I will always defend that game as a high point in the NBA Live series, and basketball gaming in general. And finally, Derek, in a similar vein, making new discoveries about old games, such as modding possibilities, or something else about how they work. I've been posting screenshots and videos on our socials, celebrating both video games and NBA history. It's been fun to find different ways to depict NBA history using video games. In particular, manipulating cutscenes. Through experimentation, I've noted how players are cast in the cutscenes of games like NBA Live 06, NBA Live 2004's Dynasty cutscenes, of course. With a bit of modding and a bit of manipulation, I've been able to set up some fun screenshots. The Heatles coming together in the wake of the decision, Bill Russell retiring, with John Havlicek farewelling him as he walks out of the locker room. Also, Bill Russell presenting Michael Jordan with the MVP in NBA Live 2004's Dynasty cutscenes. Just doing that has been a lot of fun. And I might have found a way to finally mod NBA Jam Torn Edition PC after all these years, Derek. I've at least found out how to rename Ron Harper to Michael Jordan. If I can change his ratings as well, that'll be really exciting. So going back to these games, finding new possibilities, obviously from a gameplay perspective, that's a blast. But when you discover these new possibilities with modding, or just something fun you can do, manipulating cutscenes, or something else about the game, yeah, again, even more fun you can have with an old favorite.
Yeah, Andrew was in our Discord group chat this morning, and we were trying to decide what to play. And Andrew goes, I want to use Legends. And that's kind of been your mindset for a while now. You want to use the classic players. You want to use the classic teams. You want to use Legends and whatnot. How cool is it to use them on all-time teams rosters, but also to play games where these players are current, right? Where they were actually active. You go back to the 90s and you can actually use some of these 90s legends in these games or on those games with the missing stars, modded in. Or, you go back to the early 2000s and, you play those games and you can use Allen Iverson and Dirk Nowitzki and Kevin Garnett and, you get up to 2003 and you can use Wade and LeBron and whatnot. And then you can use Wizards Jordan and all of that. And then you can use Kobe and T-Mac, etc. I find it refreshing going back playing these older titles because the rosters are completely different. It also reminds you of a better time in the league. And when the games also have all-time teams rosters and classic teams and whatnot, it makes it that much better.
Yeah, it's a great and, I think, healthy way to indulge some nostalgia. Absolutely. And back in the day, I don't think I played with Legends enough. I did appreciate them in the game. I added missing Legends in my roster updates for NBA Live, of course, and I did play with the Legends from time to time, but not enough, I think. So I'm making up for some lost time there, if you will, or I'm at least appreciating that now. So that's been great. And also, not just my nostalgia, but anemoia, Derek, which is a term that's been coined for feeling nostalgia for something that was before your time. I've been playing with a lot of Legends from before my time. I love going back and indulging my 90s nostalgia and my 2000s nostalgia, obviously, Derek, with those rosters, with those Legends teams. But recently, I've really enjoyed playing with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, Julius Erving, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell. I got into that during my NBA Live 19 kick, actually, with Ultimate Team. I was mixing in more Legends from before my time, really having a blast with that, and that's carried over to other games as well. So yes, I am still enjoying my 90s nostalgia, playing with MJ and all the legends of the 90s, and of course Kobe and T-Mac and Shaq and the 2000s legends as well. Shaq, of course, also being a 90s legend. But going back to just slightly before my time, or long before my time, playing with those greats, been doing that, and really appreciating NBA history.
Yeah, you know how much I love revisiting the 80s. Players and teams and whatnot. And I do that a lot in NBA 2K19 and 2K13, 2K14 with UBR and URB rosters and whatnot. It's a time that I either wasn't old enough to remember or I wasn't alive for. And I enjoy playing with the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s legends. And that never gets old to me. That will always be content I'm interested in.
Yeah, and with 2026 marking the 30th anniversary of me really becoming a hardcore hoophead, truly getting into basketball and basketball gaming, there's just so many milestones that I'm marking this year in my basketball and basketball gaming fandom. As I mentioned on social media, 30 years on Saturday that my cousin Clinton and I played with and won with every team in the PC version of NBA Jam Tournament Edition. Just went through a marathon session. Yeah, I had to send Clint a message about that and reminisce. So yeah, I have a lot of nostalgia for that time, generally speaking. But with this being the 30th anniversary of me really getting into basketball and basketball gaming like that, yeah, I'm just so keen to indulge that nostalgia and reminisce.
So let's get to this week's community question, where I asked, it can be anything. What are your recent dislikes and your recent delights? Dislike examples, your NBA team drafted poorly, a terrible restaurant experience. Delight examples, trade that benefited your NBA team, or you got a new dog. So MP3 at MP3_gaming stated recent delights. Well, I haven't really had a chance to say let's go Knicks on winning a ring. I wish Mitch the best of luck. Boston is getting a solid center. Also just watched the Bulls' future in Wilson, and I definitely will be watching more Chicago games this year. He also states for his dislikes, for me, to start the list of dislikes is Sony for not only putting the price of standard PS5s up, but looking to stop producing physical copies of games is a disappointment, especially when I've spent this year getting another PS2 and the NBA Live collection on that console. Yes, Sony ditching physical media in 2028 is not being received well by most. A lot of people hitting back, a lot of people signing those petitions and sending them off to Sony and whatnot. So yeah, MP3 is hurting there. But yeah, the Celtics now have Mitchell Robinson to fill that hole at center. And yeah, his Knicks just won the NBA championship.
Yeah, and congratulations to Mike and Jeff X in the forum, longtime Knicks fans. A lot of heartbreak over the years. And I did tune into the NBA Finals, including that epic comeback game. Definitely exciting. As for the Bulls' future, I've got my fingers crossed. Last time the Bulls picked top 5 and took a player of North Carolina, turned out all right. But of course, that is a very high bar. And yeah, the whole situation with Sony, of course, we talked about that on last week's show. It is nice to see people pushing back, Derek, signing those petitions, like you said, and a few retailers hitting back as well. So I'm not confident that they're going to switch gears, but we'll see.
Roger Ward, Live 01 legend, friend of the show, states his delights. Cavs might get back Braun. The Indians are a fun team to watch. Also, it's summer. And yeah, that's my prediction too. I think he's just going to end his career with the Cavs. They'll have a good team. He'll be able to compete. So we'll see what happens there. His dislikes are recently separated my shoulder and got 7 stitches on my cheek from a bike mishap. Obviously, we hope you get well soon. That sounds absolutely terrible. But yeah, I think LeBron is going back to the Cavs.
I think so too. I think it makes for the better story. I know he's got a documentary crew following him at the moment, so it certainly makes sense. It's the feel-good story, obviously, returning home for one last run. Yeah, that certainly seems to be the way the winds are blowing. And yeah, get well soon, Roger.
Even at the Live King states, recent dislikes, the NBA said the Kawhi investigation was done, but since he wants to come to Toronto, they're finding red flags. I know that he is from Toronto, so yeah, I'm sure that plays into his thoughts on this as well. Recent delights, he states, I'm looking for a good point and shoot camera or video camera. If you guys have any tips on good ones, let me know. These prices are too high. And yeah, if anybody's listening to the show and wants to reply to the Live King's tweet with suggestions, recommendations, and whatnot, please do so. I don't have any at this time. I don't think you probably do either. But yeah, if we come across anything, we'll let you know.
Yeah, when it comes to that stuff, I'm still relying on my phone, my Samsung mobile phone. But yeah, absolutely shoot those suggestions the Live King's way. And yeah, that is an interesting situation with Kawhi. You know, obviously the trade back to Toronto in the first place, but the fact that they are still investigating a year later and the possibility that he might be suspended, yeah, that trade is certainly up in the air at the moment.
Yeah, everybody involved in that situation should face some pretty harsh penalties and fines, in my opinion, and suspensions, if necessary. God of Sonder at God of Sonder stated, I dislike that Sony will no longer sell physical copies and that the Celtics traded Jaylen Brown. He states, I'm delighted that my kids are happy and healthy, and EA Sports College Football 27 has been fun to play. And as we talked about earlier, EA Sports College Football 27 no longer has the microtransaction BS. They reversed course on that due to community outrage and outcry, so that is pretty excellent. I've seen gameplay for this game, and it looks pretty awesome. I love that it came to PC. I love that they have a viable broadcast camera in that game, and that's something that I would absolutely use in Madden if they brought it to Madden, and I hope that they do. And I hope that the developers are listening to feedback as it relates to broadcast cameras, feedback provided by the Live King, who plays those games and loves playing on broadcast. But yeah, good stuff there.
Broadcast camera? Who would play on broadcast camera? You know, that's what everybody asks, ridiculously, because that is what we watch on TV. I love broadcast cameras, press views, as you know. So that is really cool to see. And that is a situation with gaming these days that is frustrating, that you have these games that play well. They've innovated, they've got great gameplay, but they're being brought down by the microtransactions. And we've seen that from NBA 2K, obviously. You know, I've not been a fan of the recent NBA 2Ks, haven't enjoyed them as much as you and your brothers have, but I can see how you and others are enjoying the game. And of course, you avoid the modes with microtransactions, which is the smart thing to do, obviously. But yeah, that is the bane of gaming these days. Even if the gameplay is great, even if the modes are deep, you've got to deal with those microtransactions.
Gentry at Bucky_T states, those college football 27 microtransactions blew us all away, but in a sense, none of us should have been surprised. I just wish the same energy was shown for NBA 2K basketball. And yeah, people haven't fought back hard enough in that regard. There has been a lot of noise, a lot of people, fighting against it, but it just hasn't been as loud and it hasn't been as effective. Hopefully in the future that does happen and it forces, them to reverse course. But I just feel like they're so big at this point that they'll try to ignore it for as long as they possibly can. And more than likely, they'll just keep the microtransaction BS going.
Yeah, the NBA 2K community, the user base, has been far too accepting of the whole situation. it's just business. All that stuff, all that nonsense, all those tight excuses. Yeah, when you see these other communities fighting back, pushing back on the microtransactions, forcing change, even with 2K, as I said earlier in the show, the WWE 2K community has pushed back on the way they handled season passes in WWE 2K26. So it's possible, even with 2K. But for whatever reason, the 2K community really accepting of the situation, really just accepting of the fate that microtransactions are a thing, and even defending them. Not just saying, oh, well, this is the way things are, but defending the practice. Yeah, it's no surprise that NBA 2K has just continued to become pushier and pushier with its microtransactions, season passes, etc., and it's dismaying. We really should be fighting back.
Dasho Bro at Nate Stasho, Live 01 legend, friend of the show, states, I've been really upset about the PlayStation and college football 27 drama. It's tough that buying, quote unquote, a sports video game will turn into renting it for a year or two, and that these games often have features hidden behind paywalls, and then it will all be gone, taken away without warning or reason. And yeah, with the NBA 2K series, you're already losing my career. Right after 2 years, when the servers get shut down, you're losing my team, and all the money that you put into those modes, it's gone. And if your account goes inactive for a long period of time after they stop releasing physical media, and those games are tied to your account in digital form, and they get rid of your account, you could lose all the games that you bought. So at least based on their announcement and the way we think it's going to work. So yeah, there's a lot of concerning stuff right now in gaming.
Yeah, like we've said, it's tough to be positive sometimes. We don't like to come on here and be critical, as you noted last week. That's not our goal. We want to celebrate our hobby. We want to talk about the fun we're having, and we certainly do that as well. But I think anybody who's paying attention to what's going on in gaming, the microtransactions, season passes, battle passes, paywalling content, the disposability of games, people are noticing, as we have, and it's dismaying, because the trend is not stopping anytime soon. It's proving to be very profitable. Obviously, some communities, some user bases, not pushing back hard enough. Others are, but plenty of others defending greedy and predatory practices, or just shrugging their shoulders and saying, this is the way it goes, and this is where we're at. So like I said, even when we do get games that have great gameplay, great modes, they have microtransactions, they're designed in a way that if you don't pay, it's a real slog until it finally gets fun after putting in way too much work for what is supposed to be a game, a toy, a fun thing, a fun pastime. So yeah, throw in the impending end of physical media, rising prices, all that stuff. Yeah, people are right to feel a bit cynical at the moment.
Moving over to Discord, we did receive one response. WizCard Rush, he states he dislikes the trend in the 2K modding community versus others like Madden and college football, ending of physical discs, and the rising cost in the PC and video game space. He states that his delights are enjoying summer break and being away on vacation, rapid developments in the decomps, recomps, and continued strides in emulation, and the rise of handheld gaming via Steam Deck and Android-powered devices being able to play PC games. So a lot of good stuff there. I will state that I can't wait for a reliable, good working PS4 emulator, Andrew. Same with Xbox One. I know that there's one in the works right now. I think those are going to be very popular, and I think they're going to be able to run games on most newer PCs, at least PCs that have been built over the last 7 or 8 years. Because if you think about it, those consoles came out in 2013, 2014, and whatnot. So cool stuff there, but I definitely agree with him. The modding community for 2K has been really troubling over the last 8 years. I would say probably since like 2K18, 2K19, and it's only gotten worse from there. People putting their mods behind paywalls, putting their mods behind ad links, and just overall not being good community members and not sharing for the right reasons.
Absolutely. I hate those trends in the modding community as well. Like you say, we've seen it building up over the last 8 years or so. Just the whole attitude towards modding has really changed, and not for the better. We're not seeing that same community spirit. We're not seeing the releases. On top of people charging for mods, we're seeing people trying to charge for other people's mods, putting other people's mods behind ad links and things like that. So we're seeing stolen work and people trying to profit off of stolen work, including anything they make, if indeed they make anything. So yeah, that's really disappointing to see. But as far as PlayStation 4 emulation, that is definitely exciting. I too hope that it comes along and that it works as well as PS3 emulation has been working for us. I know that if and when it does, we're definitely going to be getting into NBA 2K14, Derek, 8th Gen NBA Live, and to bring it back to modding, exploring those modding possibilities.
Yeah, we'll have to throw on some NBA Live 14 and kind of laugh at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we did with NBA Live 07 for Xbox 360, because sometimes it is fun to go and revisit bad games.
With a friend.
Games that play poorly. Right, with a friend, exactly. Revisiting it alone is never fun, in my opinion. Unless you're jumping in there to take screenshots or whatnot for an article, etc. But yeah, NBA Live 14, I would absolutely jump on that with you and play a few games.
So yeah, those are some likes and dislikes we have at the moment. Once again, let us know if you enjoyed this format, and like you said, Derek, we'll bring it back.
Yeah, it's fun to change things up every once in a while, but the good news is people still seem to be enjoying the show, and we're glad they're here with us.
And as always, thank you to our listeners for being part of the conversation. With that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. Thank you for tuning in, and a reminder that you can catch us every week on the NLSC, our YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast platforms. Also, both we and the NLSC are on social media, and would appreciate a follow. So, Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
Yeah, you can reach me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at D43G and at D4384. I'm also on the NLSC, D43, and on YouTube, D43.
As for me, I'm Andrew in the forum, and Andrew NLSC on X and Blue Sky. The NLSC is on X, Facebook, and Blue Sky at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. We're on YouTube at NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep it locked to the NLSC itself, nb-live.com, for all things basketball gaming. So, thank you again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.